today it is April 8th, and have you been funded yet?
So yes, we got our notifications. They tried to fund it on Monday. They had some hiccups with the SBA website. And then yesterday, the 7th, we got our final documents. And I'm telling you, Clay, within the final documents being signed via VeriSign, it was less than an hour before the money actually was in our account.
Remember, the Force will be with you.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go! Yes, and yes! Thrive Nation, today is a very positive conversation. We have a real great American out there just like you, real flesh and blood, a real man who runs a real camp, a camp that helps kids, empower kids, and teach them in the ways of Christ and teach kids how to be productive citizens on the planet Earth. The director of Shepherd's Fold. Sir, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Clay?
Hey, I am excited to talk. I haven't talked to you probably in like 8 years, probably 7 years.
It has been a while, yeah, man.
Yeah, so share with the listeners out there your first and last name and what exactly you do.
So my name is Ron Griffin. I'm the executive director of Shepherd's Fold Ranch. We're a camp just north of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and kind of what we do is we are a place out in the country where kids can do business with God. So that's what we do. We're a camp, and we love what we do.
And what bank did you go to apply for the Paycheck Protection Program? What bank did you go to?
We bank locally with RCB here in the town of Skytook, Oklahoma.
Okay, and so you went in there and you filled out the Paycheck Protection Program documents that were created by the Small Business Administration. Approximately when did you fill out those documents?
So they did all of their documents online via VeriSign. I did the fill out on April 1st, and then I received the actual documents from the SBA on the 4th, so April 4th.
And today it is April 8th, and have you been funded yet?
So yes, we got our notifications. They tried to fund it on Monday. They had some hiccups with the SBA website, and then yesterday, the 7th, we got our final documents, and I'm telling you, Clay, within the final documents being signed via VeriSign, it was less than an hour before the money actually was in our account.
And it showed up in your account in less than an hour, and you verified the funding is there, and it was 2.5 times your monthly payroll. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And did you have to put down the number of employees that, it's 2.5 times your payroll as of what date?
So I did it. I just used our previous year's 941 and used those numbers.
Okay, so maybe last year's 941s or your basically your documents that show how much money you spent in payroll. That's what a 941 is, and that would be like as of last March or as of what date did you go with?
I did the calendar year going from, I believe it was, I did it from last year to April 3rd.
Got it.
What I used.
Well, I mean, I really appreciate you hopping on here and encouraging some people out there because so many people it's almost like a unicorn event. Like, is it actually going to happen? And so you're a real guy. And for anybody out there who is wanting to send their kids to camp, you're a Christian camp, and people send their kids from all over the world to Shepherd's Fold, don't they?
They do. Yeah, we have. We are we're a small camp, but that's what makes us so great. We focus on the quality, not the quantity of the kids that come here. And so, yeah, we get them from all over the U.S. We've had all over the world as well.
What's the farthest distance that a kid came from last year to attend Shepherd's Fold camp?
Last year, I believe the furthest was South Carolina.
South Carolina. So if you're listening out there, folks, when this too shall pass and we get through this unique, weird time in American history, you're saying people can send their kids to your camp?
That is correct. we would love to have them.
And what makes Shepherd's Fold different from other camps? There's so many camps. Obviously, I heard of Shepherd's Fold through Clay Stairs years ago. I know so many friends and family who have sent their kids to Shepherd's Fold. I hear nothing but great things. But what makes Shepherd's Fold such a unique and great camp for all the Christian listeners out there to send their kids to?
Well, we are a place called home. So when kids come here, we know them. We know their families. You're not just a number here. And we love that kind of community. And that's what we're based on. It's being a real tight community of people that follow Jesus. And we love just talking about the love of Jesus and making sure kids know how that will help them in what they do in their day-to-day and be productive little human beings.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate you so much, Ron, for joining us today. I know you're a busy guy, but again, I appreciate you encouraging our 500,000 listeners. I think this is really going to be an inspiring and confidence-building for somebody out there. Do you have a final word of encouragement? We have about 500,000 listeners, so many great entrepreneurs, people that are out there, fighting the fight. Do you have any words of encouragement?
Yeah, I do. I would just say, using a local bank versus a national bank, I felt that was our real key to getting this done because, we're a summer camp ministry that helps kids, and our bank knows that, and they know who we are, they know our story. And so I would say, for those out there, go local. Go with your bank that knows you and not just be a number with a big bank.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, my friend. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. Take care, Clay.
Take care, boss. All right, Aaron Antis, what is your current job title over there at Shaw Homes?
I am the Director of Sales and Marketing at Shaw Homes.
And Shaw Homes has grown from, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys have grown from $24 million of sales 4 years ago?
Correct.
To $81 million of annual sales last year. Is that correct?
Yep. That is the time between the day I met you and started being coached by you and current.
And by the way, you just want to eat that microphone like it's a spiritual hot dog.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm eating it.
Yeah. So you guys have grown quite a bit at Shaw Homes.
Yeah.
But recently you've almost had to become almost like an expert of infectious diseases because people are just so scared about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. They're terrified.
So let's see if we can do a fun let's see if we can unscare all of our listeners in 5 minutes or less.
Okay, I'm game.
I'm going to go with the timeline here, okay? So on March 16th, Neil Ferguson, who's the director of the Abdul Latif Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, which, by the way, is funded by the Saudi Arabians, who we're currently involved in a oil price war on. Are you aware of the price battle we have here?
Oh, yes. How can you live in Oklahoma and not be aware?
So the Saudi Arabians are trying to lower the cost of gasoline, thus hurt American oil businesses, right? This is what they're doing. The Saudi Arabians and the Russians are in a price war.
Yep.
And long story short, the Saudi Arabians are the ones who are leading the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. These guys, they have a guy, they've appointed a guy to be the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, and his name is Neil Ferguson. So Neil Ferguson came out and reported that 2.2 million Americans could die from the coronavirus, and potentially of those 2.2 million, there could also be 500,000 British that could die. 500,000 United Kingdom citizens that could die.
I heard that report, yes.
Okay, so that report came out, and then Dr. Deborah Birx from the United States, who was appointed by President Obama, she went ahead and ran with it. So she went ahead and said, this is a bad thing. We should probably shut the country down. Bad things are happening. Now, this is Dr. Deborah Birx commenting on the report.
Important facts for the American people. I'm sure many of you saw the recent report out of the UK about them adjusting completely.
Now, let's real quick just give a little quick correction. What if she said, I think, folks, I don't know if you saw the recent report that came out of Saudi Arabia?
That would have a different impact on how people hear that information, I think. Yeah.
If she said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure if you saw the recent report that was produced by the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics. I don't think that people would respond the same way if they knew that. But anyway, so she says, I'm sure you saw the report. Let me go back here. Let me play the audio. Here we go.
I'm sure many of you saw the recent report out of the UK.
Saudi Arabia.
About them adjusting completely their needs. This is really quite important. If you remember, that was the report that said there would be 500,000 deaths in the UK.
The report by the Saudi Arabians.
And 2.2 million deaths in the United States.
Okay,
They've adjusted that number in the UK to 20,000. So 500,000 to 20,000. We're looking into this in great detail to
Let me explain in great detail what this means, Dr. Deborah, with all due respect. Aaron, if you build a house at Shaw Homes, and Steve, you do the mortgages at Shaw Homes, but if somebody were to buy a house for $300,000, is that a realistic thing to buy a house for $300,000?
Yeah.
And let's just say that you were off by 25 times. And you said, Clay, Vanessa, I did a price out for you. Good news. The house is only going to cost.
This just happened last week. Yeah, we had a customer looking at a home that was about 2,400 square feet, and I did accidentally misquote them.
Yeah.
That it was $7,587,916 for that 2,400 square foot home, because I was slightly off. It
25
actually,
times off.
Come to find out, it was only 300,000. So I did call them back later and let them know that I was going to adjust the price by $7.2 million to correct it for them.
So we're gonna go fast. I want to make sure we get this. Step one, folks. Where did the fear start from? Steve, the fear started from Neil Ferguson, who happens to be the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute. Steve, does that bother you that we're getting our information from the director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics? Does that bother you at all?
Yes. It bothers me even more that because one dumbass posted something that everyone in the world jumped and freaked out.
So real quick, Doctor, you just heard this though, okay? So Neil Ferguson, step one, he came out with the report. So the Saudi Arabians reported that 2.2 million Americans might die. Step one.
Yep.
Step two, Dr. Deborah Birx then puts out a report that says the same thing. And then she goes to President Trump, who, by the way, I'm not a big fan of right now either. We all make mistakes, but listen to this. I mean, this is not good. This is not what I want here. This is President Trump.
4 weeks ago, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, the greatest in the world, greatest in the
This is true up to this point.
history of the world.
True.
We had the most jobs ever in the history of the United States,
True.
almost 160 million jobs.
True.
Right? And then one day, I get a call from Deborah, who's fantastic.
I disagree with that. Dr. Deborah was appointed by President Obama because of her progressive worldviews.
And from Dr. Fauci.
Who, by the way, wanted to shut our entire country down with the swine flu.
And she said, we have a problem. I said, what's the problem? And they said, we may have to close it up. I said, close what up? They said, close up the country. I said, what's that all about? And we discussed today.
Okay, so let's get into this here. If he's the president of the United States of America, Neil Ferguson, I want to make sure we're getting this. Steve and Aaron, I want to make sure we're getting this. Step one, Steve, pop quiz. Who initially came out and said that we have the risk of losing 2.2 million Americans to the coronavirus? Who said that?
Neil Saudi Arabia Ferguson.
Right, so he came out with the report, and then step two, Dr. Deborah Birx came out and said, hey, we got to shut the country down. She told Trump. Correct, Aaron?
Yeah, socialist Deborah Birx.
And then step three is President Trump says we had to shut it down. She came to me and said we had to shut it down. Now can we go to step 4, please?
Yeah.
Step 4. 16 million Americans lost their jobs. You talk about suicide, you talk about financial peril. Step 4, 16 million Americans lost their job. Now, today, we have the ultimate oops. The LA Times, the Los Angeles Times, just reported that new data suggests that the U.S. coronavirus deaths should be under 61,000. They're now predicting 60,415 deaths, which is interesting because the common flu killed 80,000 people in 2017 and 2018. Then Dr. Deborah Birx, who's not that smart, not that smart, she starts talking last night, which she shouldn't do. That's one of the one main features that she shouldn't be allowed to do, the talking feature. She comes out last night and listen to her. Tell me, Aaron, if you can break down what you think she's saying. Here, let me play the audio. This is Dr. Deborah Birx.
All of the models were based on something we have never attempted to do anywhere in the world.
She sounds
We
excited.
have never
right now.
attempted to do this kind of mitigation. It was always theoretic.
She's giddy.
To many individuals. And now we see across the globe people mitigating against this
She's
virus,
so happy.
realizing that their own behaviors can change the course and
She's
future
got a huge smile.
of this virus in their communities, which is really astounding. The power that gives us to actually understand
so
that we can
she
compete
wants to
against
have
this
power.
virus.
Hear that
It's really
again.
astounding.
Listen to this.
The power that gives us to have this virus in their communities, which is really astounding. The power that gives us to
Again, let's hear that again.
in their communities, which is really astounding. The power that gives us of this virus in their communities, which is really astounding. The power that gives us.
Now, the World Health Organization, which, by the way, is controlled by the Chinese, this was their recommendation they put out here this week. They just put out this recommendation 2 days ago. Let me listen to this, folks. This is from the World Health Organization, which is run by the Chinese. This is what they said.
Last week, Dr. Michael Ryan, he's a leader at the World Health.
This is Tucker Carlson from Fox News reporting here. Let me
Michael Ryan, he's a leader. Last week, Dr. Michael Ryan, he's a leader at the World Health Organization.
Someone write that down, please. Dr. Michael Ryan. Here we go.
Last week, Dr. Michael Ryan, he's a leader at the World Health Organization, announced that in response to the spread of this virus, authorities may have to enter people's homes and remove family members, presumably by force.
Presumably by force.
In most parts of the world, due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them in a safe and dignified manner.
Okay, so step one, Neil Ferguson for 5,000 megapoints, Steve. Neil Ferguson, what country sponsors Neil Ferguson?
Saudi Arabia.
Yes, you win a mega point. He
I
came
thought
out.
his name was Neil Saudi Arabia Ferguson.
How many people did Neil Saudi Arabia Ferguson predict would die?
2.2 million in the U.S.
Oh,
500,000 in the UK.
Folks, Steve's getting it. I know you're getting it. Okay, you got to be able to explain this to your family and friends tonight. Okay, so step one. Neil Ferguson says how many people are going to die, Steve?
Neil Saudi Arabia
Ferguson, yes.
said 2.2 million in the U.S.
And for an extra bonus point, he is the director of what, Steve?
It's like the Emil Jamil
Steve, no.
Abdul
Shatif Jamil.
Listen, no. He's the director of the Abdul Latif Jamil Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So
he has a really good idea.
And it was started 5 months ago. And oh, by the way, his report came out 8 days after the Saudi Arabians launched a oil price war with America.
True.
By the way. So Neil Ferguson, step one, comes out with the report. Step two is Dr. Deborah. Who, Aaron? Dr. Deborah?
Deborah Birx, socialist Deborah Birx.
Who was appointed by President Obama for being progressive. She says we need to shut it down. Mm-hmm. Step three, Trump shuts it down. President Trump shuts it down.
Yep.
Step four, you've got 16 million Americans lose their jobs. Now step five. Step five, folks. This is step five. Step five. Someone should write this down. The LA Times just said, this just in. Now we're saying we probably will have 60,415 deaths, not 2.2 million, which means that they just proved that they can shut our country down with a fear bomb.
Yeah, and you've got to know that the fact that she said we have the power to do this, the next time anything else comes up like this, they're going to go, well, through mitigation, the last time we saved so many lives, it went from 2.2 million to 60,000 because we closed the country. We need to close it again.
Yes. Now, step five, this just in, step five. This is the bonus round. This is the final step five. Step five, this just in here, folks. Listen to this. Check this out. The World Health Organization comes out and says, we need to take kids from your family. Steve, is that a good idea to separate kids from their family? To let government do that?
They did it at the border and everybody freaked out. Illegal immigrants come in illegally to the U.S. with their children, risk their lives, commit a federal crime, get jailed, and then we separate their kids.
Is this a good idea? Is this a good idea to separate? Aaron, is this a good idea?
You better not try and come in my house and take my kids from me.
So the World Health Organization recommends this. Now let's see what else the World Health Organization recommends. Check this out. This is what they're saying now. Listen to this. This is fabulous stuff.
This little QR code is a lot more powerful than it looks. It helps collect data about your travel history, health status, and more. And China's using it to track citizens and stop those infected with the coronavirus. First, you fill out a questionnaire. It asks for details like your body temperature. It then generates a color code, and at checkpoints popping up across China, green means go.
Is this a good idea to implement a QR code that restricts your movement to keep the spread of the virus down?
That is quite disturbing.
It's my first time to come outside after the epidemic, but I already used the QR code several times, and I think it's good.
Is it a good idea to interview communists?
No.
They're freaking idiots.
Yeah.
They're idiots. They're idiots. The idea that you, the listener, would listen at all to the World Health Organization. This is the same organization that advocated that China, to curb overpopulation, should maybe, consider setting a limit for the number of kids they can have.
Clay, the American Revolution was fought over Americans being able to have freedom, not for them to have safety. And right now, we're scaring everybody into safety to stay in their homes. I mean, isn't it freedom that we originally fought for? And
That's
now
what
we've given up that freedom for the idea of safety. It's crazy.
Now, I'm going to ask you here a question, a little pop quiz here, Steve.
Okay.
New York Times, and all this, by the way, is all verifiable at thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus. thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus. I hate that we even have to have that page, but here we go. The article's this, Steve, from the New York Times. Where have all of the heart attacks gone? Except for treating COVID-19, many hospitals seem to be eerily quiet. Steve, if there's so many people, remember how the initial argument was, we need to quarantine.
Yeah.
So that our hospitals don't get overwhelmed. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, live in the quarantine dream.
I went to 2 hospitals in South Tulsa the other day and filmed.
And were they busy?
No, there was no one there. Like the employee
I
parking lot
saw
was
the
empty.
video. There was absolutely no one at the hospital.
But you know what they
Ghost
say.
town.
You know what all the people like that are in. Like I had somebody from Denver. They're like, "Oh, you just wait, it's coming. We're just." I've got like a cousin, and she said that it's just terrible there. And I'm like, really? How many patients have you treated? And she said, well, my colleagues have been treating him. I'm like, oh, so you actually haven't seen a COVID patient? No, I actually haven't. And neither has anyone else. In fact, Hillcrest just announced that they're laying off, 600 people?
Yes. 600.
So there's 600.
Hillcrest Hospital, for those of you who are not from Tulsa, Hillcrest Hospital announced big layoffs because they're so busy. I mean, hospitals are so busy, they are now laying off their medical staff. I know at Shaw Homes, when you guys are busy building houses, what you do is you lay people off.
Oh, yeah.
It's the move.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we need this built. You're fired.
Now, I'm going to cue up the final audio. So step one, let's review again. Step one, because it's neural pathways. We have to learn this stuff. Step one, Neil Ferguson.
Saudi Arabia.
Ferguson. I'm learning. Okay, and he put out a report that said we'd have 2.2 million American deaths. He says, oops, I'm off, but he didn't tell us he's off until Dr. Deborah Birx tells Trump, step 2, we should shut it down. Step 3, Trump says we got to shut it down. We have to, step 3, we got to. Now, after step 3, we say, now we got all these jobs, people losing their jobs. We got 16 million Americans unemployed. Every small business is shut down in some capacity. Key vendors are being let go. Contractors aren't being paid. Just ripping apart the economy people have worked forever to build. Meanwhile, now we come back and we go, well, what's step 5 again? Well, step 5 is we got to listen to what the Chinese are recommending. They're recommending we'd use QR codes to limit people's mobility. We
Communist China.
Let's take kids away from their parents to help America. Oh, this makes a lot of sense. Okay, I get it. And now, our next step, our final step, is we gotta lay people off. Where the hospitals are so slow, we gotta lay people off.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
This is Dr. Deborah Birx last night. I would like for you to explain to me after you hear this, Aaron. Explain to me what you think she's saying here. This is Dr. Scarf-wearing communist Birx. Let's listen to her real quick here. Here we go.
There are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition, and let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU and then have a heart or kidney problem, some countries are recording that as a heart issue or a kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death.
So if I had congestive
right now,
heart failure, if I had that and it was a recurring thing and I keep ending up, or I've been smoking for 40 years and I've got COPD and at the same time I catch the flu, COVID-19, then the China virus, then if I go there and I die from the emphysema or my congestive heart failure, that means I died from COVID-19.
Yeah, that's what she said. Let's hit play here.
We're still recording it, and the great thing about having forms that come in and a form that has the ability to mark it as COVID-19 infection.
Oh, we can just change it.
The intent is right now
That's
that
convenient.
if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that.
Oh, that's
have you ever managed employees over there at Total In Concepts, or have you in your mortgage? Have you ever managed employees?
Oh yeah.
I want you to think about this for a second. Think really hard. Aaron, I'm going to have you one up Steve here.
Okay.
Whenever the phone rings at Total Ending Concepts, you answer the phone. Your team answers it kind of like this. They go, "Thank you for calling Total Ending Concepts. How can I help you?" And you say whatever, and they go, "Hey, how'd you hear about us?" Have you ever had an employee that lied to you about where the customer came from, and that way they could show that they were more valuable than what they were actually worth? Have you ever had that happen?
Yes.
You have?
Yeah, because their commission on their loan would change if it was a company generated, i.e. someone called from Google, versus them out getting their own deal, getting it a referral. So yeah, they would want to get paid more.
Okay. So you've seen this happen.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever caught somebody lying to you at Total Ending Concepts or at
Today?
your other mortgage companies? Have you ever caught somebody who's applying for a loan who lied to you about how much money they had down, or maybe about their credit score, and you said, "Sir, I need to pull your application," and you pull it and the number's wrong, but they don't want to tell their wife that their score's too low?
Right.
So they tell their wife that you're being difficult and you won't return their calls. Does that ever happen to you?
Yes.
Aaron, have you ever at Shaw Homes ever tried to get someone pre-approved to build a house with you, and the man doesn't want to admit to his wife about his gambling addiction or his poor financial habits, and so therefore he doesn't get approved, but he tells her that you guys just weren't calling him back?
I have actually had that exact scenario happen.
And have you ever had an employee lie to you about why they're not coming to work?
Yes, many times.
And have you ever had them double down when you caught them lying? Have they doubled down?
Yeah, they typically don't admit to it because then they're afraid they're going to lose their job.
Steve, I want to get your take on this. I have had employees, and maybe I'm just a bad boss, but I've had employees. I had one. I'll mention this. I had a doctor I worked with fairly recently, about 2 years ago. He tells me this, and you tell me, Steve, if this sounds probable. He says, "Clay, I'm going through a divorce. I said, "What happened?" He says, "Well, I had a relationship with a different girl, and it's just, I messed up." Okay, fair. He says, but I need you to say my website, talk to John, and I need my website to be appraised for about $1 million. Because in the settlement, I'm going to still use you guys, but I'm going to give her the website as opposed to some of the cash, So I need to have that appraised value of my website to be higher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not out as much cash. And I go, I can't do that because I'd be lying. He's like, "Oh, come on. I do it all the time with houses," he says. Steve, you ever had somebody lie to you about the appraised value of their house?
Well, yeah, but we get appraisals, so that is the reason why you can't just lie about it.
But don't people try?
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people just play the ignorance game. They're like, "I don't know, I think it's worth about 400 when it's not." So, but yeah, people lie about everything. We just had a client with a builder, Shaw, that we do business with, that completely fabricated his employment and said that he was still active in the military when he wasn't. And we found that out through the loan process, and it makes you wonder why he wasted our time.
Oh, Steve, I got to one-up you. I had a guy say that he needed to take his son's vehicle to him on the other side of the state because his son had important things to do, and the vehicle had been repaired in Tulsa. He had to take it to Oklahoma City, or his son was going to miss something very important in his life. And what the employee forgot about is that I'm friends with his wife on Facebook, and about 2 hours after he took the day off on a busy Saturday, which is when we're busiest, that she posted pictures of said employee in Boomer Sooner gear standing outside of the stadium with the mascot for OU with his family getting ready to go into the football game.
Right.
But I'm sure that was probably just me misinterpreting.
Now, are we saying as a culture, are we saying that we believe that doctors can't lie? Is that what we're saying? Are we saying that a doctor who was appointed by President Obama, let's go back in time real quick. Steve, do you remember President Obama talking about things that were eerily communist in nature? Do you remember these things?
Yeah. I try to block out most of what I.
But I can't block it out. I'm not as mentally strong as you. I actually picked up a copy of the book, The Audacity of Hope. I read the whole thing cover to cover, his book. And President Obama was later asked by many people who were referenced in the book. They said, they interviewed these people. They rounded them up. And they said, in the book, you're Obama's best friend from high school. What was that like, living around President Obama during that time? You know, what was it like? I mean, he talks in the book about being discriminated against and having a hard time growing up in Hawaii. Well, so his friend says, well, I really don't know what Barry was going through, but let me show you a team photo. So you see the team photo of the basketball team, and there's very few white people in the photo. You know why, Steve? There's very few white people in the photo when you go to Hawaiian high school.
Right.
A lot of Samoans, a lot of Asian people. So it comes to Obama's attention. He says, they said, President Obama, hey, your friend here, you know, said you didn't really have a problem with racial divisiveness, you know? And he says, well, my book's more of a fictional narrative of a time period. He says it's about his own book. His own book, which I read cover to cover. Then, in the book, he talks about one of his good friends. He says there was a wise teacher he would hang out with after school. So they ask his friends, they say, friends, who was this wise teacher? Turns out he was hanging out with a communist professor, President Obama. Now, President Obama, I mean, could it be possible that he might lie? Remember Nixon? Remember the Republican Nixon? Remember him lying?
Yeah.
Remember President Clinton lying about...
I did not have sex with that.
Remember the
sexual relations?
You remember Cigargate? Remember that, guys?
Cigargate.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Him lying about he did not have sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So we're gonna.
But Clay, when you finish up as the last step of getting your medical licensing is that they inoculate you with something that makes it impossible as a doctor for you to ever lie from that point forward. That's why Dr. Birx doesn't lie. I mean,
now,
she wouldn't.
This is a little education for President Trump out there. Maybe he was listening. Is when you take the oath to become the president, it says you're going to put your hand up, you put your hand down on the Bible, right? And you say you're going to promise to uphold the Constitution.
True.
Now, the First Amendment, it talks about we have the right to peaceably assemble.
True.
Steve, can we peaceably assemble right now? Because right now, you're having to call in right now on this show.
Yeah.
Poor Aaron here has to call in. I mean, we can't even be in the same physical place at the same time. We've got to call in. I mean, Steve, think about this. I mean, do we have the right to peaceably assemble?
No.
What happened?
Well, we should. I mean, we do, but we don't.
So again, I played the audio
freedoms for safety.
I played the audio, but because Neil Saudi Arabian Ferguson reported that 2.2 million people might die, Dr. Deborah Birx then tells Trump, hey, we should shut it down. And then Trump says, I had to shut it down. And I don't know when this is going to get through to the soul of our listeners. But, folks, now we've got, I mean, we're talking about the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington. These guys who were once originally predicting 2.2 million deaths. Oh, boy, we could lose so many. Now they're down to 60,415 deaths.
Still predicted, but that's still 1/6 of what they actually have deaths. Because it's 10,000 right now in America.
Yeah, but I mean, Steve, it's inevitable. They're going to die. There's nothing we can do.
Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little bit of temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety.
Benjamin
Franklin said.
I'm going to play this audio. I'm going to play this clip. And Steve, repeat that 4 times, please.
Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Those who would give up essential liberty
which is
to
freedom.
purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety.
Yeah.
So those that would give up essential freedom to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither freedom nor safety. That's what Benjamin Franklin said. One of the founding fathers.
I think he might have known something about that.
Now let's do this. Let's carry this out, and then we'll wrap up this show here on the longest 5-minute show of all time. Let's say, Steve, that you had an employee that might come down with cancer, and so you told the employee, you know what, we got to put you down. Wow. Is that a smart idea?
No.
Now, Aaron, let's say that you thought the economy might fall apart.
Yeah.
So you decided to shut Shaw Homes to prevent Shaw Homes from being shut down.
Yeah.
Does that make a lot of sense?
No.
Can you please explain to me, Aaron, how this logic of explain the mindset to me, because you're talking to employees who are wrong and passionately wrong. They're so wrong that I'm convinced when the economy comes back, we might not want them back because they've shown who they really are.
This is true.
But let's talk about this. What kind of arguments are you hearing right now as to why we should be closed?
We should be closed because you are going to contribute to the death of my family. You are making me put my family at risk. They are going to die. Even though their family is not even in the risk group, they are young, healthy people. But yet, I am putting their family at risk of dying.
So let's go through this. And I'm putting this all in the show notes, according to the Center for Disease Control in Italy, 99.2% of all the people who have passed away from the coronavirus were people that had a deeply compromised immune system. So the young people aren't really at risk. How does that logic even make sense? I guess your employees would have to go to Shaw Homes and then go to the nursing home and hug Grandpa and Grandma. Is that what we're saying?
I guess that's what we're saying. Even though Grandma and Grandpa probably drive a car, and more people in our country this year so far have died from car accidents than from the coronavirus. But the fact that they allow their grandparents to go out and drive a vehicle is a greater risk to their health than the coronavirus.
You know, my mom actually told me this the other day. She called me. She said that her and my dad, who are both in their 70s, were kind of cooped up in the house from like quarantine. They thought they'd be a little rogue and go out for a nice drive. And she said as they were driving, someone in the family had no idea that they're out driving, but sent them a article about how many Americans die in car accidents every year. They thought, okay, so we're in our house quarantined to stay safe from the coronavirus, and then we go get into our much more dangerous vehicle on the much more dangerous roads where we are actually risking our lives more than if we had just gone about our everyday life. So
true.
And I would like to throw this out here. This is an interesting thing. Remember the Oklahoma City Thunder game, guys, where they decided to shut the game down because one player had the coronavirus? Do you remember this?
Yep.
And he tested positive. Well, I was thinking to myself, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool at the end of this if we did, if we did a show that kind of broke down just the real risks out there in the game of life? So, Steve, 40,000 people die a year from driving cars in America. 40,000 a year. So, Steve, we would have as the same amount of risk of dying from the corona at the game as we would have of dying en route to the game.
Right. Or going home.
Right?
It's like double time.
I mean, and then I thought about this for a second. What if you did get the coronavirus? Let's say you somehow avoided, almost certain death driving to the game. And you get to the Oklahoma City Thunder game. And let's say you did get the cough. So they take you to the hospital. CNBC reported last year that over 250,000 people per year die from easily preventable accidents in hospitals, which is 3 times more people than the common flu kills. The common flu kills 80,000 people a year.
Wow.
I mean, so really, the most dangerous night of all time would be you going from your house to the hospital to be checked for the corona. That's the most dangerous thing you could do.
Yes.
Because you could die in the car on the way there.
And now that the hospitals are shut down, they're able to kill less people.
Yeah, so that's actually making America safer by shutting it down in the hospitals.
That's true.
Maybe this was a good thing.
That maybe we'll have saved a lot of lives, actually.
And now, without any
Make
further
America
ado,
work again, except for hospitals. You go out of business.
All right, here we go. And now, without any further ado, and by the way, we have hot mics. Hot mics. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom!